Today's guest is one of the most exciting young females in motorsport. She has gone from figure skating to now throwing her car at a wall 100 miles per hour with someone else chasing her in one of the most brutal forms and misunderstood forms of racing.
She's part athlete, part content creator, marketing whiz, and honestly a glimpse into what the future of motorsport looks like. This is Amanda Sorensen. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. We have very special guests, as you've just heard. And Amanda, welcome.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You've come all the way from Vegas just to sit here, obviously, because that's how we roll. But you are here because you have one of the wildest origin stories. You've gone from figure skating to Formula drift, so professional drifting, which we just have to get into what that is, because you are literally throwing yourself and a car 100 miles per hour to the side, door to door with others. So
yeah, it's pretty intense.
What is harder mentally, coming here from jet lag or that?
Well, drifting's such a unique sport, right? It's actually a judge-based sport. So there's three things that our judges are looking for: line, angle, and style. But drifting, just as you see in like a Tokyo Drift movie or Fast and Furious, is two cars going side by side, drifting sideways. So it's like, we like to say it's controlled chaos. So basically, we're drifting the car sideways, high speeds, low speeds, big turns, small turns, and we have relatively large tracks that we'll drive on a portion of like maybe a road course or a portion of a NASCAR course. They'll give us clipping points, outside zones, inside zones, and our goal is to be very precise. So there's a lot of precision involved, and basically just hitting the marks.
Wow, so interesting. It's interesting as well that you mention Tokyo Drift, because I think that's what a lot of people automatically think of when they think of drifting.
I know, I've just got the soundtrack in my head when you said Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
And the image of drifting up the mountain.
Yeah.
But I want to know, okay, before we start officially, we like to do a little warm-up lap, which is sort of a way for the audience to get to know you. And so is there something about you that people may not know, or an embarrassing story, a funny story, something that people might not necessarily know about you?
I think a lot of people don't realize how much I do behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'm very business driven. So as far as from my perspective, not only am I a driver, but I'm landing the sponsorship deals, working on the social media content plans, and I do this with a group of people on my team, which are phenomenal. However, like, I like to be very involved and lead those sort of discussions.
Yeah, right. Nice.
I'm very excited to get into
Yeah,
the rest of the episode,
same.
because I have so many questions on, like, you know, the business front and everything that you do. But you have explained what you do briefly. I just need to know for a second though, figure skating to drifting, why? Just before we get into everything else.
Yeah, so I did used to figure skate when I was younger. I started at a very young age. I quit when I was 18. So I did it for quite a while, but I also was involved in like many sports. So I played volleyball as well. I played a lot of instruments, harp, cello, piano. But just as a child, I always had a very active childhood. So not only was I racing, and I was racing different forms of driving, so off-road racing, go-karting, and involved in many different motorsport, as well as like ball sport and figure skating as well. But it's just kind of what happened. I fell in love with drifting. I seen an opportunity for a career, and I just took it.
So it's so interesting because you've come from such a varied background. When did you first get introduced to drifting? Because I know you've done other motorsports. I did hear you've also done monster trucks, which is amazing.
Yeah, I drove a monster truck for a while.
Is crazy. But what was the point where you were introduced to drifting, and when did it click where you were going, this is the direction I'm going in?
I think so. I was introduced to drifting at the age of 14. I had an opportunity. A friend offered for me to go drive his car at just a regular local, like, small grassroots drift event. And I went drifting, took a video. My brother was out of town that weekend, sent it to my brother, and he was like, wow, I'm so jealous. Like, when I get home, we have to go do that. So when he came home, my brother and I went out drifting again together. And my brother actually is the one that kind of steered the direction for the family to be super involved in drifting. He fell in love with it. At the time, I was like, okay, like, this is really cool, but I was going from long endurance races, like racing long desert races that are, you know, hours on hours, to now just drifting for 30 seconds and you have to come in and change your tires. And I was like, this is like, you know, it's definitely change of pace. So it took me a while to adjust. And when you start drifting, you start in a very low horsepower stock, maybe BMW or 350Z, and low power. We're talking like 300, 200 horsepower. Barely getting around the turns, really using momentum. But when you get your hands on a pro car, 600 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower, everything changes. And so for me, from that age of 14 to 17, I was more just kind of, I wasn't actually very into drifting because we were still in low horsepower cars. And that's when I really started focusing on skating a bit more. And so I was figure skating, and then I'd go from the rink to the track and go drive with my brother, but maybe burn only 1 or 2 sets of tires. But my brother got a pro car. So when I got my hands on the pro car, I took it for a lap and I fell in love. I was like, wow, this is my speed. Like, so much fun. It was 800 horsepower. It was an old Formula Drift car that we had bought, championship winning car. And I was like, this is so fun. I think I was maybe 18 at the time. So that was my first year competing in the Pro-Am Championship. And I podiumed in the Pro-Am Championship, got 3rd place. And so I was like, okay, like, you know, I kind of have the skill. I have what it takes. That was a big confidence booster. And going into the following year, I went into Formula Drift, which is basically in drifting. How it works is you have to work your way up the ranking system. So you have Pro-Am, Pro Spec, and Pro. I was in Pro-Am at the time, and then I stepped into Pro Spec. So when I stepped into Pro Spec, it was a huge step, but then COVID happened. And so following COVID, or during COVID, I really got heavy into social media. And that's when my social media blew up. I remember I made a video and it was like, it gained 12 million views overnight and I gained like 80,000 followers. And this is when Instagram just came out with Reels. And I was like, this is crazy. So I started seeing all these girls post these trends and I'm like, I'm going to like, instead of doing like this cheerleading trend, I'm going to put my spin on it and make it very more motorsports based. And so that's what I was doing. My social media blew up. And then from there, brands started calling, sponsorships started coming. And I was like, okay, I don't even know what to do. Like, there's so much here. But then from there, I built more of like the business side of things. And that's when I fell even more in love with drifting because I really started to understand not only the sport, but the business side as well. And yeah, I've been on that train for about 4 or 5 years now, just competing in Formula Drift.
That's so interesting.
I know. It's wild.
So it's interesting as well. You were explaining how it works because I guess, I mean, you know, we're predominantly a Formula One podcast, but at the same time, we always champion within motorsports. And you talk about the steps. I guess it's sort of similar where it's like F4, F3, F2, F1. But kind of to circle back on what you mentioned about judging, how it's a judge sport. How, just to explain to our listeners and to us, how exactly does that work, the judging process?
Yes. Because you said 30 seconds and then you have to burn the tires.
Yeah.
Well, so technically, like when you're doing a run, usually our tracks can take anywhere from 30 seconds to 1.5 minutes to complete. It has nothing to do with time. So it's not timed. But what you're judged on is line, angle, and style.
So very figure skating.
Yeah, kind of. So as far as line goes, you have outside clipping points and inside clipping points. And you have to be as close as you can to that clipping point. So say it'll be like 20 feet with a marked out outside clipping point. And you have to be as close as you can to that wall while maintaining same speed, same line, and same angle as you're going through that zone. Now, every adjustment I make with the steering wheel, every hiccup I have with the car, I'm losing points. So the goal is to enter the zone at one angle and stay at that angle while being like precise, keeping that line, angle, and speed as you go throughout that zone the whole entire way. So if you're in and out of the zone, you're losing points. If you're bobbling, you're losing points. So it really just is almost like performing and showing car control at the highest level. So to show that I can put this car into the zone at this exact angle and keep it the whole entire time. And we're literally like dragging our taillights on the wall and like scraping scraping the front bumper against the front clipping points to just show like I'm close, but I'm not destroying my car. And you know, there's those times where you're like, you go into the wall and you're maybe half a foot too deep and you do like the taillights go flying off. But it's just really showing precision. So the judges are watching 3 different judges. They all switch roles each time. But they're looking for that line, angle, and style when you're in that like lead position. Now, I can dive more deeper into it and we can talk about the chase position, because when you have 2 cars, the chase car, his job is to mirror exactly what the lead driver is doing.
And is that something you're competing against?
Yep, so you're competing against this guy, and it's basically an elimination style bracket. So you have 32 drivers going into competition, and it'll go 32, 16, 8, 4, all the way to your winners. So you get a lead run and you get a chase run. But as a chase driver, you want to really just anticipate what that guy is going to do in front of you instead of react to what they're doing. And you want to be precise. So when they transition, you're transitioning at the same time. So you're getting judged on a lot of things. There's a lot of things to evaluate. I feel the fans sometimes just love it because it's like, oh my gosh, that was a close call. There's tire smoke. It's very entertaining. But from an athlete and driver perspective, I definitely have a very different view on judging and watching the sport.
God, that's so interesting. How many cars do you go through? Because I mean, I'm just imagining like, you know, you're obviously competing with other people on the course with you. Or
Yeah, so 2 at a time.
2 at a
Always 2 at a time.
always just 2 at a
Yep.
time. Okay, so your car is obviously getting very close to the wall. As you said, you got to, you know, look like you're hitting it, but you're not because
Yeah.
it's precision. How many cars do you actually go through?
I've had the same car for 5 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we definitely have a thing, what we call like a bumper budget.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, we're going through some bumpers, tail lights, and I mean, majority of the time though, like as a driver that's been doing it for a while, you find where the limit is very quick. And then you know, like you can kind of start off easy and work your way into like a deep like zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Your body must cop it. I'm sorry. I'm just like sitting here thinking about how your body just must be just to hold yourself in those positions and take those impacts. That's where my head's gone.
I did hear something where you said, where you spoke about how technically drifting is like one of the safest motorsports.
I mean, drifting is definitely very safe. Like, I mean, our speeds, you have to think we're driving very fast in a straight line, but then the way physics work is, you know, as soon as you throw the car sideways, you are going to slow down because you no longer have that forward drive. But that's where a big misconception comes in with drifting is you think a lot of people from the outside think you would want the car to be loose and not have a lot of traction. But the goal is to have the most traction while spinning the tires. So there's a lot of engineering and science and data that goes into dialing a perfect car and getting a good car set up. But it is, I mean, there's 2 cars on the track. Kind of, it's, I would say, just like any other motorsport, like go-kart racing. I mean, you're in a car strapped in with your safety gear. So, but yeah, I don't ever feel like I'm in danger when I'm driving.
You're a weapon.
Yes.
I was in on a skid pan on Friday. And I got a little bit concussed because I hit my head and I'm just like, my whole neck is like hurting sitting here. And I'm like, how do you do this every day? So it's a lot. Yeah. I'm very impressed by your body and your like work ethic with that. So kudos to you.
I assume you do like the neck strengthening exercises and all those things.
I mean, you have to think it's not like I'm doing these events for a long time. Like, I think the difference between maybe what you're thinking and what I do is like in F1, for example, they're in the cars for, I mean, an hour more. And so they're resisting it both ways for a very long period of time to where what I'm doing is a 30-second, a minute and a half run. I mean, you're just strapped into the car and you go.
Yeah.
It's still impressive on your body though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of like the fastest speeds that you hit, what because I guess as well, when you think about F1, the biggest, and why they train their necks is because the biggest impact is the G-force if they crash.
Yeah.
What are the top speeds that you hit in drifting?
So actually, I was just in New Zealand at the world's fastest drift corner, is what they call the track. It's called Pokakoe. And for me, just to give everyone perspective, I drift on the left-hand side of the car because I live in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I travel overseas to like New Zealand or Australia to drive, I'm driving on the right-hand side of the car. So you have to think everything goes backwards for me. So I went to Pokakoe. I had about 4 or 5 months off of driving, and I had some recovery time I was working with. And so first time back in the car, right-hand drive car. And I'm at one of the world's fastest drift tracks. We're entering, they said around 200 kph was our entrance. I think I was like 185 was my fastest entrance in a borrowed car that I've never driven. It was like a rental car for the weekend, right-hand drive. So everything goes backwards, shifting with my left hand, pulling the handbrake with my left hand versus at home. You know, I'm doing it with the right. So my dominant hand has to switch. And it was just such a thrill because not only am I going really fast around the turn, but I'm driving on the opposite side of the car as well.
It'd be fun. It's kind of like falling in love with the sport again from the get-go.
No, I literally felt like I was learning to walk again.
I love that.
Because it goes against everything that you've learned.
Down to the T of I didn't realize how coordinated my left foot was with my right hand on the shifter and the clutch. When I was going to shift with my left hand, my reaction time was so delayed. Like I had to think like, okay, left hand, push the clutch in, like, and then there were moments where I would grab the handbrake instead of the shifter, and it was, you know, like I said, learning to walk again. But you have to learn really quickly.
How are you feeling about it now? Because you drove here today.
Yeah, so I drove in Australia. I've been here for about a week and a half, and I drove an event last weekend. It comes back naturally, like pretty quickly.
Feeling comfortable in our roads, though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm feeling very comfortable.
I've definitely driven in the US and pulling out of the car rental place and be like, oh, I'm on the wrong side of the road. I'm on the wrong side of the road. Like it's that. It's interesting because I did very, very, very amateur drifting with the Toyota GRs.
Nice.
And I like exactly what you're saying about like thinking about the clutch, the handbrake, turning the steering wheel at the same time. I take my hat off to you.
It's
because
all very different.
It's a lot. And you think like, am I supposed to be doing this? It almost kind of goes against what you're taught to actually do when you drive on the roads.
It's even as simple as I went to go cross the street like earlier, and my natural instinct is to look left, right, left.
Oh,
It's just so weird because like you look right, left, and then you're like, wait, I feel like I forgot something. Like your self-conscious is
I
like,
forgot
no,
about
this is
that
not
feeling.
right. This
Yeah.
is not right.
So I think in London they have look right, look left on the road because there's so many
internationals
that come and probably I know it's actually very dangerous.
It's a thing.
So be
I think
careful.
it's so funny because we're used to having to, like when we go overseas, it be opposite.
Yeah.
It's just very rare that it's our way.
I think you always just look both ways just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never
So
know.
as we mentioned though before, obviously we do talk about Formula One a lot on this podcast. We are an F1 podcast, and Pat said women in motorsport is a massive thing for us. If someone said to you, here's a single seater, is that an appeal to you at all, or is it just drifting?
Yeah. Definitely. For me, I am a very diverse motorsport athlete. And so I have a couple go-karting championships. I have an off-road championship. I've driven many different forms of driving. I had a test session in a Lamborghini in the Super Trofeo series. I was right up to pace very quickly, and I was like, wow, I love this style of driving. The one thing I haven't done yet is single-seater. So I would have to say, like, I've driven monster trucks. I've drifted cars. But I think, and for me in drifting also as well, it's like car control is basically exactly what we're performing, right? Like we're taking the car to its very, very last limit and showing that you can still control it. So when I did the Super Trofeo test, I never drove with ABS or traction control. and the ABS was something that was new, and as well as the traction control, right? So for me, I was like driving, like almost knowing where the limit was of the car. I found the limit where the traction control kicked in, but I started using it as like a cushion. Like I could drive it to the point to where the car was almost stepping out and pushing the car to its limits. And I was working with a driver coach, and he was just like, I feel that, you know, I've never really had a driver come in and perform so well, but it's because you're comfortable knowing where to push the car to. And so for me, it's always been an interest of mine to go into more of like a road racing scene.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, interesting. Watch this space. Kind of coming back to drifting, because I think the sport can be a little bit misunderstood because people, you know, it doesn't fit with that fastest wins format. What would you say to people that think that way?
yeah, it's definitely very unique in a way that it's very entertainment based. Like it's, you know, our crowd is very edgy. Our crowd is very loyal fans. In America, we're the #1 millennial motorsport. So our main demographic
Really?
is 18 to 34-year-old, all consumed through YouTube and Facebook.
I guess
But-
it's also short attention spans.
Yeah,
these
short
days as well.
attention span. And
There
you have to think of it this way as well. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Power Slap. Have you heard of Power Slap?
No.
Okay, so in America, do you know what UFC is?
Yeah.
So we have UFC. Everyone goes to a UFC fight to watch for the knockout, right? Everyone goes to the NASCAR race to watch for the big crash. To where in drifting, it's like you come and it's always just that action packed of like the car is drifting sideways, there's tire smoke, and you're at the peak height of the car performance. To where like UFC as well, you're watching all those viral moments that are on social media is the knockout. All the viral moments for NASCAR is the big crash. And drifting is such an internet sensation because it's that peak short attention span of the car like at max performance. So for our fans, they get super into it. They're very loyal. More edgy style kind of crowd, like I said, but it is that millennial demographic. So it's definitely like you have to be there for the good time and understanding the entertainment perspective of it as well.
God, what goes through your head right before a run?
There's a lot of nerves for sure. It's taken me a long time, even coming from like a figure skating perspective where it's a judge-based sport. I could do my routines over and over again, land every jump and spin, but as soon as it came time for competition, I would miss at least one of them. So I've had a long time training for the on-the-spot moments where the big pressure is coming in, and it really wasn't until about like 2019, 2020 that I had an event that I was driving at, and it all just kind of clicked. Where I'm like, oh, it's just another practice run. Like, why am I so stressed out? But I do a lot of visual training, so more of just like close my eyes, do my run in my head, act it all out in the car. Just because if you're prepared and you know what's happening, what's to come, you're more likely to succeed. So for me, it took me a while to really get into my routine of that. But a nice little visual lap before I go out for competition, and then just really studying my opponents and knowing what they're going to do, because when you're in the chase position, you have to be aware and you have to anticipate what they're doing.
And excuse my ignorance on this, but in Formula One, obviously they have simulators and they can practice on all the tracks around the world. Is that a similar situation in drifting? So you knew what you were doing in New Zealand prior, having never raced there before?
Yeah, so I did about 30 to 50 laps on the simulator before I showed up. I even converted my simulator over to right-hand drive for the simple fact that I needed to practice the right-hand drive. But we do have simulators. So I have two brothers, one that's 21, the other one that's 14. My 14-year-old brother is now the youngest licensed Formula Drift driver, came to Atlanta our first round and won the seating bracket. And it's because he probably had over 100 hours on the simulator driving that track. And he doesn't even drive a car on the real road. He just drove on the simulator over and over again, practicing that track, showed up and won his seating bracket, which was mind-blowing, but it just goes to show how much the simulator translates to the real-life driving.
I think kids these days, I think if they've got digital Xboxes, all right, grammar. If they've got Xboxes, PlayStation, simulators, all of that. I think it's going to make such a difference in lives. Like, you know, now
Definitely.
now he could have a career in this.
No, he is. Like, he is already like a hot commodity.
It's crazy as well that probably legally he can't drive on the roads.
Yeah.
I know I don't know if you know Joanne Chiconti. She was a Formula One Academy driver from Australia, and same thing, we interviewed her and she was like, I drive 300 Ks an hour, but I can't drive on the roads. And we're like, it's just mind-blowing. Like,
yeah, that's how it is usually.
It's completely mind-blowing. But I want to talk about, kind of circling back to what we said about, you know, your marketing and how you've built yourself up. And something that's interesting about your career is that at one point you were thinking, I basically need to find sponsors or stop racing. So how did you go about that process?
I think for me, it was actually a bit different because it all came very fast. It was like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I was just like, I had my social media blow up, and then I had brands reaching out to me left and right. I had agents calling me left and right, and I felt like I was pulled in so many different directions that I was trying to evaluate as quickly as possible what I should do. And so I actually did my own research because it was just so overwhelming. So I read a book called Motorsports Marketing, written by Alex Stryler. I definitely recommend reading it if you're into partnerships or sponsorships. And
hang on, what was that? Marketing
Marketing
by
Alex Stryler.
Alex Stryler. All right, guys, we'll put that in the show notes for it, because there's plenty of we have a lot of listeners that are wanting to get into motorsports or the motorsport world in general and automotive. So we'll pop that in the show notes.
I also have a lot of friends that were like influencers, and like whether they were YouTubers with like 5 million, 10 million subscribers or Instagram influencers. I just started calling my friends and I was like, hey, like, what price are you charging for brand deals? And how do you prepare a partnership deck? And so I'm very fortunate that my family was very supportive in this situation. My dad really pushed me into learning motorsports, like proposals, and really just understanding the numbers market and how much money things were going for. And so I come from a very business-driven family. And so with that support, I did my own research, read books, watched YouTube videos, called friends, and was guided by my family as well to just put together partnership decks and proposal decks. I think like they sort of gave me a bit of a, you need to learn it if you want to do it. But I took it to the next level of like, how do I make these partnership decks get the yes every single time? And that just came with, I even was reading books about like women in sports and, you know, case studies on a partnership with maybe another motorsports team. And so with that, I just geeked out. Like I literally geeked out on the motorsports partnership level and the social media brand deals. And things then were a bit different than they are now. So I actually feel like I'm relearning because it's not really about the micro influencers anymore, or the macro influencers. We're more about the micro and nano influencers. So I do find that sometimes with this day, having over 1 million followers is a bit of a struggle. To where they're wanting the people that have 10,000 followers or 50,000 followers.
A lot of people don't understand that. It's a constantly changing market.
It is.
There's a place for, but that means there's a place for everyone.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so with that, you know, I just fell in love with the business side of things and marketing and social media. And I have such a creative mind that I didn't scroll Instagram like to see what everyone else was up to. I was scrolling Instagram because I'm like, how are brands spending money? You know, what sort of partnerships are they looking for? What activations are they doing? Can this spiral for something for me? And so with that, I started pitching partners and I had pretty good success.
That's so cool. I was going to say, what's the day-to-day look like as well? Because obviously this is a big part of your brand and your career, but also the fact that the brands that you do work with, I have been told, and also from what I see, that they're the ones that mean the most to you as well, because you're very smart in working with brands that mean something to you and that actually going to be part of your life as well, not just what that dollar figure is. You know, you want it to feel like a more genuine partnership, which I think is so important. Do you mind just touching on that and why that is also important? Because some people just do it for the money.
Yeah, I think one thing that I had to learn at a very young age was what my purpose was. And I think that being such in the spotlight as a public figure in the motorsport scene, male-dominated specifically, I had to really just learn, like, what my purpose was. And with that, there was a lot of evaluating, but there were a lot of core values that I unlocked about myself and my morals. And so for me, I realized, like, there's a lot of inspiration happening. I am so touched when a young girl comes up to me at the track and pours her heart out to me, or a family comes and says, oh my gosh, like, can we get these for our daughters? They're a huge fan. They watch your YouTube or they follow you on TikTok. And for a while I was known as like, oh, you're that girl from TikTok. And I'm just like, that's crazy that I'm reaching not just like, you know, people in motorsports, but a global perspective, like, of all these females and young males as well. Like, there was a young boy that was like, hey, like, if you could do that, like, I could do that. And I'm like, totally right. Like, you totally can. And so for me, when it comes to working with partnerships and brands, I always am just focused on, does this reflect who I am? And does this brand stand for, you know, something that I support? Perfect example is Quad Lock. So my phone case, they are a lifestyle brand. They have products for mountain bikes, cars, filming products as well. So maybe if you want to put a GoPro on your bike handle. They have products for Harleys. They have products for all these different things, even a running armband, right? So every day I go for my morning run, I use my Quad Lock armband. I get in the car, I put my phone on my Quad Lock car mount. So I love working with brands that just are part of my lifestyle. And so it makes it easy because it feels like content is authentic. I'm not having to force out a testimony. I'm not having to talk about a product I don't actually use.
It's naturally integrated into your everyday life.
Exactly.
Like, it's always going to be there in the background.
Totally. Yeah. I just did a brand deal with L'Oreal Paris, and when they reached out to do a brand deal, I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. Like, I've been using the L'Oreal L5 glycolic gloss on my hair for so long, and I'm like, this is literally the shampoo and conditioner I use every day. And so when it comes to stuff like that, and like, one of my biggest questions is like, how does your hair look so good when you get out of the car? And I'm like, well, it's the products. You know?
I feel like that's anyone's, like, if you've ever spent time on a track, particularly girls, like, whenever I take my helmet off, I'm always like, oh,
yeah,
God, no one look at me for a second. But then I see people like yourself and Bianca, who is a Formula driver as well. You all just look so damn good all the time. So
yeah, we've got our
kudos
secrets.
to you guys. Well, you guys, I think you need to divulge those secrets one day.
You said the glycolic hair.
It's the L5 glycolic plus gloss.
Okay.
System.
I need that because I feel like whenever I've had a helmet on, my hair's just.
Oh, I just get the sweat marks and everything.
Well, you have to understand as well, like, I mean, we've been doing it for so long. I braid my hair. I put a helmet sock on. I tuck my hair into my suit. Don't get me wrong, it gets nice and sweaty back there. But I would have to say, like, when I take it out of the braid, the hair is always usually very controlled and tame, which is something that, like, I would have to say the product is a result of.
Yeah. We need to put that in our show notes.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think people judge women so much for getting into motorsport sometimes, but also any sport when it comes to beauty and cosmetics and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's part of our lives.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'm like, glam session, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makeup, hair, everything. Put the helmet on, take it off 10 times, get the glam shots.
Yeah.
I like to think it's the future of sports, and we've seen it so much even like across the Olympics. We're seeing, you know, people with like their makeup done and their nails, and this is us. This is literally how we show up to life. Like, why would we not show up to our sports like this?
And I think it's going to be reflected in a lot more sports because at the moment, beauty sponsors mainly women's sports and sectors of that. But we know that, you know, the fan base of Formula One, 45% of that is female.
Yeah.
It is a male-dominated sport, obviously, because it's just men in Formula One. There's going to be a time where it comes where they don't just sponsor F1 Academy or just a general sport attendance. They'll actually start sponsoring the men, and it'll be brands targeted specifically to women.
Yeah.
I think that needs to change.
No,
It shouldn't just have to be the women carrying everything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then also you have to think too, like makeup distributors as well are going to tap into carrying male products now.
Yeah.
And then they can target both demographics. So, yeah, no, definitely. And like, I mean, I think that that's another thing that just speaks is like, some days I'm like, and I used to be really critical on myself. I used to be super critical on anything I would post until I started to realize like everyone wants to see all versions of me. So we have those glam shots and we have those days where my hair's looking great. And then we have those days where I take my helmet off and like my mascara's running and my makeup's all over the place. But I think that that's why like just being so authentic and showing everybody like there's so many different sides. Some days I show up to the track exhausted and I don't even put makeup on before I go, you know, and I'm like, well, I still have to vlog. So we're going to get it done.
I guess that sort of comes back to what you were saying before about micro, macro, and then in the end you've got authentic followers that are actually engaged with you. But in terms of your time spent driving versus time spent, you know, focusing on the business side and the partnership side, what is that divide typically? Like how long driving versus?
I think for me, I definitely had to put in a lot more business and working the sponsorships brand building side before I got to do the driving side. I think that I realized I had this platform, and through this platform, I was able to do business and be able to feed and feel what I love. And so there was a lot of time spent growing my team back home. There was a lot of time spent building my brand, taking it international. There's times that I paid way well over what I should have to go drive in an event. And it was an opportunity though. And so I think for me, like, you know, those are those moments where you're like, okay, I have to invest in order to have some sort of return here. And it wasn't really until, I mean, I would say it's about 5 years now of just waking up every day and like investing into the brand side and the business side that I was able to say, okay, now I've driven. Like now I get to drive. I mean, last weekend I drove. This week I'm here in Melbourne. I'm going to do a video project. Next week I'm going to go drive in Surrey. I get home, I go to Long Beach, and I get to drive. Like now it's, you see that result kind of coming in, but it was 5 years in the making. It was a timely thing. And don't get me wrong. Now I still am like, okay, I think I'm doing a bit too much driving and not enough business. And so you have to really find that balance, but that's where you start to begin to grow your team and the people around you. And I would have to say, like, without the people around me, my social media manager now, and I've been teaching her for like 2-3 years, putting a lot of time and effort into building what she does. Even like all the way down to like my best friend who's my emotional support. Like it takes a lot to have somebody to understand what I'm going through. And so just the people around me, I would have to say, is something as well that is being built in the background in order for me to do what I do.
Do you think that's a reality that driving is just not enough anymore, or being an athlete is just not enough? You need that social media presence?
Yeah, I think you have to look at it this way, that maybe 10, 20 years ago, the only people getting the coverage were the people winning, to where now we have that coverage accessible at our fingertips. You don't have to be the most winning driver to be the most visible driver anymore. We have the internet. We have literally millions of people at our fingertips. And so I think building that brand presence is so important, because that's what brands wanted. Brands were signing with the drivers who were getting the publicity 20 years ago, but those drivers were only getting covered because why? They were the top 3 winning drivers. But now we have, you know, social media, and we can build our own brand.
It really can change so much for you as well. And it sounds like you're incredibly hands-on with how your business side works. How hands-on are you with your car?
I used to be a bit more hands-on with my car. I actually am super into like taking things apart and putting them back together. I love a good challenge. And so when I was younger, I grew up in the shop with my brother. We would go out, work on our cars all the time, always like changing the axles out, because like there's all those consumable parts that are getting swapped out all the time. And so I was super into it. Now I'm not home as much, but like I said, that was that timely thing, building the team around me, a team to work on my car. But don't get me wrong, like they will not make a change without me saying okay. So I'm in tune with my engineer, my car crew chief, and they're coming to me before any final decisions are made. However, they're the ones executing it now. I do like to get my hands on a car build here and there. So I just recently bought a car that I'm going to build up, and I'll do a video series on that. So it'll be fun. But yeah, I think it's important for somebody to understand the dynamics of the car, especially going and traveling around the world now, driving other people's cars. I've gotten in some really good cars and some really bad cars. And so how do you make the bad cars work? Well, you have to learn. So, doing some suspension setup, some tuning on the car, all of those things are super important to be a successful driver.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Do you think that a driver can purely just be a good driver, or do they need to have that technical knowledge and understanding to kind of have that edge?
I think you definitely have to understand, like, your car is your other half. Like, to make this car do what you want it to do, you have to understand how to do that, and you have to understand what it's doing as well. You don't necessarily have to be hands-on. I personally believe to be a successful driver, you need to focus on being a driver just for that weekend. And that was that balance I had to learn by, running the team, as well as like running my car and being the driver and being so self-conscious of like, hey, I'm sitting and staging, but maybe my crew guys are goofing off over in the corner. What am I thinking about? I'm not thinking about my run. And so I think that finding that balance and tuning out on just being the driver for the weekend is something that's super important. And I don't think, as a driver, you need to be out there hands-on changing the things on the car. I definitely think when test time comes around or tuning time, you spend that time to understand how the car works and you get hands-on. But I think for the race weekend, it's really important to be just the driver. But you need to be in tune with the car for sure.
I don't think you're doing enough. I think you need to add one more thing into managing everything. You are obviously a female doing all of this, and it's a lot of responsibility. Do you think there is room for more females to be in a similar position to yourself across all categories of motorsport?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see the women in motorsport thing as not just a movement anymore. Like, it's like a thing. Like, we're here, like you guys, even literally, I always say, like, I feel like sometimes people think like, oh, women in motorsport, it's like thinking of a female driver. And it's like, no, it's like, I'm talking about, I have a mechanic, her name's Fantasia. She's on my team. And one of my big history making nights, Fantasia was one of like the biggest key factors to that night. She was the girl. She was right by my side every single time I pulled up to go out for my comp and giving me the fist bump, giving me the water, putting my umbrella up. But not only that, changing my tires when I came in. Like, she was on my right rear. And so this girl, like, just really carried the weight for me that night. And I think I realized, I was like, it's so important because sometimes males lack that nurturing energy. And there's so many different roles that a female can play in this motorsport world. Alexia, she's my social media manager. She's doing her job. Yeah, she's in motorsport, but like when you think of women in motorsport, I think people really think narrow, but it's such a broad category. Even to being the track wife. Like, people don't understand how much being a track wife or track girlfriend actually consists of. I know plenty of them, so there's definitely a lot of roles.
It's interesting you talk about that nurturing side, because I always think of, what was her name? Angie, Lewis Hamilton's
like athlete
physio.
manager.
Yes, performance coach.
Yes, that's right.
But think about how successful Lewis Hamilton was, and she was right by his side doing all that.
But what do they say? It takes a
village.
Takes a village.
Well, it takes a woman behind a successful man or something like that.
Or on that movie, it's like the man is the head, but the woman is the neck, or something. Which
My
controls
Big
the
Fat
head.
Greek Wedding. Yeah.
Not
we
in
all
every
know
case.
the world couldn't survive without
Yeah.
us.
Exactly. But you mentioned your brothers before. You've competed against them or with them. How has that shaped you and where you are now?
Yeah, I have done a lot of driving with my brothers. I would have to say my 21-year-old brother, his name's Brandon. Brandon and I drove a lot together, racing go-karts together, and let me tell you, when it comes to sibling rivalry, there is literally no mercy. So I've been driven over top of with a go-kart. I've been crashed down a front straightaway. So it's been fun because I've always had him pushing me to the next level and vice versa. But then here comes Cameron, our youngest brother, and this boy is literally a diva. Like, he is so naturally talented, but he's a bit of a mix of Brandon and I both, which is even more scary. And so I never really thought, like, oh, I'd have to worry about competing against my youngest brother. My youngest brother is now competing in Pro Spec with me. And he just spends all of his time on a driving simulator. And I'm like, bro, I can't keep up. Like, this is crazy. To where Brandon and I just drove, like, we grew up racing against each other on the track. But you always have that competitor with you, whether it's, a family outing for the night and we go to just pole position down the street. It was just like a electric go-kart track, that families go to for fun. Or, we could play Mario Kart on TV, and it's like, there's literally, like, the competitiveness never stops. The sibling rivalry is always there.
So have you done the, you were saying the chasing and the leading? That's right, chasing, leading. You've done that against your brother specifically?
Yeah, so I haven't driven against Brandon, but I had competed against Cameron before. And so with him and I, it's like we had an unfortunate situation where we both pulled up to the line, his car broke. And so we didn't actually fully get to compete against each other. But yeah, in drifting, when we train a lot together. Yeah. So we get to do a lot of lead chase in the beater cars. So these cars, like, we just take out to a track, low horsepower cars, and just destroy the doors, destroy the front bumpers. You go find a nice car off of Facebook Marketplace for like maybe $4 or $5 grand, and you put a hydro in it, maybe some coilovers, whatever you want, and take it out. And that's your practice car for like 2-3 years till it's like you just beat it up. Like, you take it to its absolute limits and you find the limits, but you do it in the beater car. So then that way, when you get in the pro car, you're not really, it's a bit more cost effective.
Yeah. Sounds so fun.
Yeah.
I think I want to go do that now.
Yeah. I was going to say, where do you see drifting going globally? Because obviously, it's still pretty niche if we compare it to F1. Where do you see the sport going?
I think the sport is so unique in the way that you have to realize we're now being incorporated into, like, F1 as well, right? So, like, they had the McLaren Go Drift demo run in Vegas during the F1 Vegas. Mm-hmm. And at a NASCAR event, you see drifting out front. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of demos that we can do with drifting because we can literally do it anywhere. Yeah. So as far as, like, a global perspective, I think it's really being turned into an entertainment thing for brands, car manufacturers. I host VIP track days for some of our partners. I'm sponsored by the United States Air Force at home, and, we do big video projects featuring, like, how a drift team is very similar to the Air Force. They both have tire changers, like flight managers, that kind of stuff. So with us, we see that similarity, and it's like an entertainment thing. So it's really everywhere. As far as the sport competitively, though, I was blown away when I started taking my drifting career internationally and realizing, like, Spain has their own pro championship. New Zealand has their own pro championship. Australia has a championship. And, yes, it's a very, like, niche category, but it's, in America, it's the fastest growing motorsport. It's the #1 millennial motorsport. So I think as, the sport grows old, it will definitely continue to expand. And we have manufacturers involved. Ford is heavily involved. Toyota's heavily involved. So you've seen, the OEM support is there, to where other sports, they don't necessarily have that. But I think that the unique part about drifting is that we still have the grassroots touch. It's very edgy. So we have a very professional level with OEMs, big brands, Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, like every energy drink is there. You have all the manufacturers involved. So it's like, it's big on a business standpoint, but you still have that grassroots touch where it's like some driver might be spending every bit of his savings to be competing in that competition that weekend versus another guy who has the full OEM support. So it's very interesting.
What's the next level for you then? I mean, do you want to just, I mean, I could see you just going around to all the countries, Spain, Australia, winning the championships and being the number one. But what is next for you?
I think for me, I definitely was really working on that work-life balance. So last year, I finally okay, how do we figure out work-life balance? So a bit more life to, the work. But I think there's been no female that's gone pro in drifting. So as of now, I've made history as the first female to podium in Formula Drift. And that's the pro spec level. But you have to win the championship in pro spec before you can move up to pro. So place first, second, or third in the championship, and then you're granted your pro license. So my goal is to place top 3 in the championship this year and be the first female to pro. The Europe series is also very competitive, Drift Masters. And so I've done 2 wildcard entries where I just get to go drive for the one event of the season. And I didn't qualify. I was so close to qualifying in Poland. So I want to go back and be the first female to qualify in Drift Masters as well.
What is a season length and what time of year is it?
We're usually April through October for competition season in America specifically. And then I do a lot of training overseas. So like I said, driving here in Australia, I was in New Zealand. Ice driving is a really big thing. So ice drifting. So that's obviously December, January, February. So the season doesn't necessarily stop. The competitive season does. So it's nice for the cars to get rebuilt, kind of take a break. But for me, the driving doesn't.
There you go.
Yeah.
Any of it scare you as well?
Because, I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
When I showed up to
you
New
sound pretty damn
Zealand,
confident.
when I showed up to New Zealand in a right-hand drive car with fast entries, I was like, this is a bit nerve-wracking. But I'm like, I'm gonna drive this car. Like, I'm gonna do what I have to do. So, yeah, you just have to really find the confidence in that.
Confidence within yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Trust yourself. What's one of the funnest things that you've driven that people wouldn't expect?
Oh, I'm going to change that a bit. I got to fly a fighter jet one time.
Oh, okay.
And so
you flew it yourself.
I flew a fighter jet with the Air Force, which was so cool. So I did a ride along with the Thunderbirds, and I flew an F-16, which was so
oh my God,
sweet.
That's so cool.
I did it. They even logged it in my logbook. But I'd have to say the funnest thing I drove. I mean, okay, so I drove monster trucks for a while. That adrenaline rush is like no other. Like you're in this really, really big beast of a thing, and you have front drive as well as rear drive on a joystick. So it's like you're playing a video game while you're driving, but it has so much forward moving mass that you have to turn the rear wheels before you turn the front wheels, and you're like 20 feet before you turn the turn. So it was just such a big beast drive. I remember getting out and being like, my adrenaline is going through the roof right now.
I did not know that.
But yeah, I think I get a really big thrill out of driving other people's cars as well. So it's it's such a challenge. You never know what the car is going to do. So that's always been fun as well.
Wow.
Well, we are getting to the end of this chat, and there's so much more I could ask you, but I have to ask you some Formula One questions.
Oh,
and so we're going to dive deep, not super deep, but I want to ask there's a lot of contention online at the moment and with the drivers about the new regulations with Formula One, and also that the cars are 47% hybrid, electrical power units, and then 53% petrol. Where do you stand on that, and what are your thoughts on would that ever go into something like drifting?
I mean, definitely, I think it's super cool too. I did a lot of electric racing. So I actually traveled and I raced in Extreme E, which was an electric rally car, all-wheel drive. And then just recently, I drove in the first FIA licensed hydrogen racing series called Extreme H.
That was at Goodwood, wasn't it?
Yeah, I actually drove it up the hill at Goodwood, but the competition was in Saudi. However, it's just so cool to see it switches it up, you know? And so for our team specifically going into, and like I can relate this on my perspective as a driver and how like the teams could relate in F1. As a driver, I showed up and did my job as the driving part, but the team is just kind of like thrown for a loophole. And it's like, okay, new environment, new car that we're working with. And so integrating the new technology, there's all those bugs that you have no idea about. Obviously, their teams are very high level and a lot of, knowledge is going into maintaining those cars. But it's a challenge. It switches it up, which I think is kind of what F1 needed. You know, the teams definitely need to switch up a little bit.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think it was getting very stock standard. So I actually really enjoy these new regulations. We're only 2 weeks into the season, but I actually think it's making it interesting. I mean, Mercedes is dominating, but they could have an electrical fault any day.
and that's the thing, right? So when I was driving in like the FIA Hydrogen series, I was racing this hydrogen car, and I had 2 potential hydrogen leaks. So I had to get out of the car. Potential hydrogen fire, which hydrogen burns clear. So we have all of these sensors. But all 3 of them were faulty. But it was because it was a false sensor. So it's like all of these bugs that we're working out. And even with Extreme E, the electric racing, when they had, we're tuning the front drive to the rear drive because they're 4 separate motors. And now all this technology that you're able to like put into like fine tuning the car. Okay, well, then you don't take into consideration, you have, X, Y, and Z over here, but it's affecting this over here, what we're not paying attention to. And so it's really just switching things up for us. And, midway through our season, one of the teams had an electrical problem. And it's like just things that you're chasing. But honestly, this is what the OEMs and the manufacturers rely on to do this sort of testing and, really just be the leader in the new technology for our automotive industry. So it's very cool to see because I found out as well the Red Bull Toyota maybe is who built the hydrogen motors for our hydrogen cars that we were racing. And so they're like, oh yeah, like there's been years of testing. The Red Bull team actually is the one who built this motor for us, whatever. And so it's like, it's just cool to see how it's all intertwined in the background.
Oh, it's so intertwined. Even when you think about Max Verstappen racing GT3, like it's all connected. And final question, if an F1 driver was thrown into your car, what do you think would be the biggest thing that they would struggle with or find different about the car? Or
I think the steering ratio is a bit something that will throw them off because, in the F1 cars, you have to realize they have half rotations to full lock to where we have 1.5 rotation to lock. And so there's a lot of, in the transition, I think you have to really throw the steering wheel a bit more than what they would probably anticipate. But I've seen F1 drivers hop in drift cars, and it's actually cool because I love scrolling through social media, and then, this driver, the F1 driver's like, oh, I just bought a drift car. And it's like, so sick. I know that, what's his name? Mick Schumacher?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a drift car. It's one of the coolest drift cars. It's a Eurofighter. But I was like, oh, that's sweet.
In it now as well? Or
I'm not sure if he's competing, but I did see him do a couple video projects. So it's always cool to see that.
Surely that could be maybe a next goal, you chasing
one
of them.
Yeah, an F1 driver.
An F1 driver.
That would be sick, yeah.
And obviously winning.
I think, was it Lando maybe that just went ice drifting?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was ice drifting. So, I mean, you have to understand it's like a great way of practicing car control.
I think we just need to explain what ice drifting is. Just in case people don't know what it is.
So it's when you go on a frozen lake and the ice freezes, maybe 10 feet plus, and you get these really long studs that go into your tires. So it's like studded tires. So you have a lot of grip, and you're driving on like frozen lakes basically. Like they build out tracks on these frozen lakes. So just kind of like go and mow it out, and you drift around. In same thing, low horsepower, beater cars, maybe mid horsepower range, and you have these really long spikes on your tires. So you have a lot of grip. but you're just going and burning laps.
So cool. That's like a dream of mine to drive on the ice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming in today.
Thank you.
It's been awesome just understanding your world more and also the world of drifting. It's something that, you know, we only know so much about. You know, we're not super exposed to it. And it's so important that as females running this podcast that we do learn more about the other motorsport classifications out there, because as you said, it's the number one growing sport in America.
Yeah.
And number one millennial.
Yeah, it
Motorsport.
is. Yeah.
And who knows, someone listening might go, actually, that's what I want to
Yeah. So
yeah, it's crazy. Isn't it crazy how like the influence works?
do. Literally.
It's insane.
It's
Yeah.
insane. But thank you so much for coming and chatting to us. And this has been fantastic.
Thank you
And
guys
we
for having
wish
me.
you all the best. And we're so excited to see what your future holds, because there's so much ahead of you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Lovely. Thank you.
bye.
Bye.